Okay, so I'm usually making my content in French, so I truly hope you'll be able to understand what I'm saying, so please bear with me. I believe you all saw the new clip showing Ambessa's vocal prowess, especially if you clicked on this video. Sadly, the song is heavily copyrighted, so I won't be able to use it for my analysis, so before going any further, go watch that clip if you haven't done already. Just to make sure, from now on, I'll consider that you've watched it, so I'll be able to start the analysis, and let me tell you, I have a lot of things to show you. By the way, just a heads up, the editing might be a bit, I'd say sloppy, since I'm going to analyze moments from the clip by slowing them down, and once again, I'm not allowed to use the music, so sorry in advance. Alright, so the clip starts on a beach filled with fallen Noxian soldiers before revealing our main character, Ambessa. An arrow is visibly lodged in her stomach, but what particularly catches my attention is the way she places her hands. She protects her belly in a very particular way, which immediately communicates to us that she is indeed pregnant. Shortly after, we can see that she's looking at something in the distance. The silhouette of a wolf emerges from the fog, heading towards her. And that's exactly when the music starts. Ambessa's first reaction is seen on her face. She's afraid. But this fear doesn't last long. We can see her looking towards her belly, her child. She takes the time to caress her belly, as if to reassure the baby, before doing her best to put her hand between the wolf and herself. However, her body doesn't have any strength left, and you can see her hand falling directly to the ground. While we can see her gradually losing consciousness, the wolf seems to be staring at her. This is where I'd like to draw your attention to the black bars at the top and bottom of the screen. This wolf is none other than Kindred, and his piercing gaze will judge Ambessa's soul. As we delve deeper and deeper into Ambessa's mind, the black bars are fading away, letting us know that we are indeed moving from the real world to some kind of inner world. We find ourselves in a kind of dimension created by Kindred to test and judge Ambessa's soul. Once inside, we are directly greeted by Kindred. We can see the shape of an eye with the lamb's silhouette at its center. Immediately afterwards, Ambessa appears, and her first reaction is to check herself up. She's obviously not used to seeing herself in this form, which makes me think that she's been forcibly summoned here by Kindred, reinforcing the fact that this place belongs to Kindred in the first place. Okay, so little fun fact, right when Ambessa insists on the word I in the song, a red wave is echoing throughout the room and Ambessa is summoned, making it clear that the whole video is indeed all about Ambessa. She then looks all around her before fixing something in the distance straight ahead, exactly where Lamb's silhouette was. It's at this point that the test begins, but before we get into that, I'd like to give you a quick introduction to who or what Kindred is, for those of you who may not be aware of the history surrounding this entity. To put it simply, Kindred is made up of two entities, the wolf and the lamb, who together form what we might call death. The lamb brings a gentle death to those who accept it with open arms, while the wolf hunts and stalks those who refuse it, bringing a violent death with him. Every culture across Runeterra has its own interpretation of Kindred, and Noxus is quite unique about it. This territorial empire places strength above all else in life, but also in death. In fact, the people of Noxus worship the wolf way more than the lamb. This is one of the reasons why this video clip shows us a lot of wolf and war imagery. And now back to the analysis. Once Ambessa looks in the direction of the lamb, a flash of light shows us the first phase of the test, the lamb phase. Here we find ourselves in an area that closely resembles the Shurima Desert, where the Medarda family originated. A multitude of creatures awaits our warrior, all with their own particularities. We can see that one of their senses is highlighted while the others are being hidden. For example, here we can see an eye, on this creature a mouth but no eyes, and on this large monster, which we'll see in more detail later, we can see an ear being highlighted. Gold is also an important component of their design, but to be honest, I still don't know why. apart from the obvious fact that Ambessa comes from Shurima and that it's an important metal in the region. This shot in particular reminds me of Dali's elephants, with their huge legs and this endless desert. The setting for this scene is bathed in light, and Ambessa wears white clothes, reinforcing the lamb's more peaceful, almost innocent side compared to the wolf. These creatures also seem to have been created with African inspiration in mind, but I don't know enough about African mythology and folklore to be more precise on the subject. You can also see how the creatures are pushing Ambessa without ever hurting her and without ever dropping the lamb she's carrying in her hands, but I'll come back to that later. Finally, the wolf's effigy can be seen in the sky, and that's also an important detail, so please keep that in mind. The clip continues, this time inviting us into a bluish dimension, a sort of in-between world where Ambessa can have a glimpse of her potential future. Here we can see her as she appears in the trailers for Arcane Season 2, a proud warrior leader on a throne, a crown of hair behind her, and a sword by her side. Kindred's test now moves on to the second phase, that of the wolf. Here we see Pantheon, symbolizing war, in a much darker room than the environment of the first phase. He arms his shield and prepares for battle as the light falls on him. And like the room, Ambessa's clothes are also darker than what we saw in the first phase. This time, she's wearing a kind of black and gold armor, in total contrast to the much less warlike white tunic, all of which goes to show that the two test phases are completely different. And unlike Pantheon, the light doesn't stop on Ambessa. For the moment, she's not Kindred's chosen one. She's not even yet worthy of being the wolf's avatar. She's only at the beginning of this trial. So she's going to attack Pantheon several times before being defeated by the warrior. As you can see, Ambessa is back at square one, but this time with scars all over her body. I think each scar symbolizes failed attempts, as we can see here, and these details makes me think that she's being summoned in this kind of hole every time she dies against Pantheon. But it takes more than that to discourage a warrior like her, and we can see her moving forward again to start from the beginning. The clip makes this clear by showing us once again the white flash and then the first environment in the middle of the desert, symbolizing the loop she has to go through each time she tries. Once again, there is a great importance attached to certain details in this dimension. We can see that two creatures form a face using one eye each before separating, and unfortunately, I can't let you hear that part of the clip because of copyrights, but we can hear the creatures in the background howling as if they were crying. Ambessa is at the center of the group, completely lost and frightened, and this is where the huge long-legged monster sets the pace. Again, I unfortunately don't have the knowledge to know where it comes from, but it's clearly important. It obviously symbolizes the right ear, whereas the other one we'll see later symbolizes the left one. The only thing I can remember so far is that the creatures with eyes are looking at Ambessa, those with mouths howl and cry, while those with ears set the rhythm with drums. Each and every single creature symbolizes one of the 5 senses of Ambessa, but I don't know why. Once the rhythm has been set, we move on to the bluish dimension where Ambessa sees what I think is a present at the time of the clip or another possible future. Again, sorry I can't use the song in the video, but here Ambessa sings these lyrics. I can use who I want, and I taste what I please. In this world, I get all my fantasies. So here I see a fairly comfortable future or present in the sense that she can have whatever she wants. However, the rest of the lyrics imply that something is about to change. There's a hand on my throat and a child at my feet. By saying this, I think Ambessa implies that she can't have this ideal situation precisely because she has new priorities. The child at her feet is a weight, an hindrance to the realization of this situation, and she's feeling as if it was a hand around her throat. It's precisely at this moment that she lifts the lamb she's been holding this whole time in her hand to get rid of it. But while we think of the lamb here as representing Ambessa's child, it's quite possible that it also represents Ambessa's own innocence and childhood. And in fact, I think that through these trials, she will not abandon her child, but rather abandon the innocence and childhood that lies dormant within her, in order to gain the strength to protect the child whatever the cost. Following this decision, we see her return to combat in the second phase, the Wolf one. She fights as furiously as ever, but once again fails to defeat Pantheon. Here we see the same process as before, with the scar appearing on her forehead where the warrior had struck her, and as she immediately returns to battle, we hear her sing the line about having a child at her feet once again. The point here is that she no longer needs to go through the first stage, since she's already made her choice. She wants to fight for her child. It's precisely here that we start to see something interesting. Following this decision, we can see that the light is no longer shining solely on Pantheon, but on the two warriors. The outcome of the fight is no longer as clear-cut as before, but as we can see, just as the light is shining on Ambessa, Pantheon knocks her to the ground, taking away her moment of glory. She was almost there, but instead of giving up all hopes, she immediately picks herself up, and this feeling is reinforced by the words Ambessa is singing as she continues to fight and pick herself up. But the weight of the world won't bend my knees. The clip then goes on to show the lamb being gradually destroyed in the first world, before revealing a statue of a child holding another lamb. The statue is then slowly being surrounded by swords, symbolizing war and combat. Ambessa finally cries when she sees this, and it's easy to think that she's mourning the loss of her innocence as she realizes that she will have to face a life of constant struggle to protect the child. The symbols of war around the child are, for me, the manifestation of the battles Ambessa will have to undergo to protect her daughter's childhood as well as her innocence. We can see that she's now fighting with this in mind as the video continues with the fighting phase against Pantheon. But this time, he's not alone. He's surrounded by a representation of Swain and Katarina, but I'll come back to that later. Here we can see that the light is no longer focused on Pantheon, who is slowly retreating. This time, the light is focused on Ambessa, who struggles to her feet, as if to indicate that she has finally understood and passed Kindred's test. To emphasize this point, Pantheon can be seen holstering his weapon, and multiple lights are shining upon other figures in the background, probably other warriors who have passed the test prior to Ambessa. Kindred is once again being revealed as Ambessa climbs a staircase towards the throne we saw earlier. The same throne where we could see the future Ambessa we all know and love from the Arcane Season 2 trailers. She is dressed in black as if to symbolize that she now represents the wolf, and this is once again confirmed here. Kindred offers her the token of the wolf, a representation of her now being a part of the eternal hunt, and to show that she passed the test. The lamb is now completely being destroyed, and the shards that were once part of it are now slowly being united within the representation of the wolf that we could see in the first world sky. Here, Ambessa grabs this token and gradually becomes the avatar of the wolf. At the same time, the first world is gradually being destroyed, and the version of Ambessa that resides there cries and screams as she fades away, fading away to actually make room for an Ambessa representing the trials to come and a life of constant battles. Her body is covered by the same red tattoos Pantheon, Swain, and Katarina have been seen with, and these tattoos remind me of Noxian writings, the same ones that could be found on the codex that talks about the demons of Runeterra. But unfortunately, we don't know much more about this. Still, it's interesting to note that at this point, the song says, "Leave me with my demons." So in my opinion, it's not for nothing, especially knowing that Kindred is an entity present since the creation of the world, just like the primordial demons of which Fiddlesticks is a part of. The clip finally reveals Ambessa's form once she has passed the test, and we can see that this time she's represented in the same way in all three worlds, indicating that she's no longer divided over her choices, but now has a clear goal in mind. And what I find really interesting is that the light here gives us the impression of a heartbeat to slowly bring us back to life. The same heartbeat and colors we'll see in this shot of Ambessa's child. With that, I think it's a way to tell us that they were indeed both dead at the beginning of the clip, but they have come back to life thanks to Kindred, but for a price. Ambessa will now have to honor the wolf and lead a life of constant struggles and battles. Which reminded me of that scene from the third season of Arcane when Ambessa explains to Mel that she has no idea of the choices she had to make to protect her family.
Because you weakened me. I couldn't endure the look in your eyes whenever I made the necessary decisions to keep us safe.
Following this, we can see the wolf go back into the mist, as if to indicate that she passed the test, but also that her life is no longer in danger. Ambessa can be seen getting up again on the beach, with the Etretat cliffs in the background, a landscape well known to the French. So technically that means France is right here in Runeterra, I guess? The clip ends here, but my analysis doesn't. First of all, apart from the first world creatures, two details escaped me. But I'd like to bring your attention to it in case anyone knows why it's there. First, there's this flag. I don't know what it represents, and then there's these bracelets around the lamb's leg. Again, I don't know why it's there, but I imagine there is a reason. Then, for those interested, Ambessa's biography is actually available now. You can learn a few things to go with the video clip, so I really invite you to read it all, it's not very long. And to continue, Riot has also shown the in-game skins that go along this video. They all have a little text to explain some stuff, and thanks to them, I was able to learn that my analysis was correct. Because, yes, I was able to analyze all this on Twitter and live on Twitch before making this video, but, you know. The world where Ambessa is found does exist under the name of Volraknun. And because I'm a huge fucking nerd, I was able to translate what this word meant thanks to the little information we have about the language of the dead. So, simply put, thanks to Mordekaiser's story, we know that Oknun means the language of the dead. We also know that the Grey Realm is called Mitna Raknun, meaning that the word Nun probably means death or afterlife. I also think that Ok means language, and that the word Rak probably means world, realm, or even domain. Mitna means grey, and that would leave us with the word Vol, which, given the context, would probably mean wolf. So, Volraknun would mean the realm of the wolf, as in the realm where the wolf is testing your soul in the afterlife. Getting back quickly to the fact that Swain and Katarina are behind Pantheon in this scene. I think it's not directly about these characters, but rather what they represent. Katarina is actually a bit younger than Mel if I'm not mistaken, so it wouldn't make any sense to see her as an adult here when Mel isn't even born yet. It's also possible that Kindred's world is unaffected by time, and that we could find the souls deemed worthy by the wolf through the ages, but then it would get very complicated. Anyway, that's all for me about this whole analysis. I hope you enjoyed it, and that it wasn't too hard to understand the way I speak. If you did enjoy it, I will really appreciate the support. Anything will do really. A like, a comment, subscribing, or even sharing the video. And obviously, if this video is doing well, I'll probably continue to make English content from now on. Anyway, in the meantime, take care and I'll see you around.